The local government or the state government has got their own fair share to play. What role can the federal government now coordinate and syndicate to make sure all these problems can be dealt with?
Well, one is the federal government. Well, if a national task force is established, first of all, the federal government must ensure that there is sufficient funding for the task force. I mean, there may be a joint funding between the state and the federal government, but there must be enough money in the till for the joint task force to operate. The federal government, of course, can ensure sufficient budgets, especially to the Department of Environment, which is under budgeted, in my opinion, to carry out especially the management of scheduled waste disposal, the tracking. These are many aspects where they are totally inadequately funded and have a lack of resources, which is the critical part in pollution, is to track the disposal of pollutants from industry and businesses. In addition to that, SPAN has a role to play also, and they should play a more aggressive role. I noticed that the prosecutions are being conducted under the Quality of Environment Act, but it's not under Section 122 of the relevant Water Services Industries Act, which is quite a serious provision dealing with the intentional polluting of water. But I suppose to step up the prosecution facilities, in other words, to assign specific DPPs to the various state as well as federal agencies to carry out effective prosecution. So these are things that the federal government can assist the state government to promote the framework of water security, which, when you look at the COVID-19 example, is being well done. The federal government is working very well, I mean, to an extent with state government. Of course, they differ on whether you should close at 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock or something like that, but they're reasonably moving together with the local authorities. So that kind of commitment to work and put aside political differences. In addition to the earlier point you said about community role, I think we've not answered that question. Apart from the community behaving themselves and making sure they throw things in the proper places, the current amendments to the law, actually, which are under the new Selangor one, as well as I think under the earlier enactment, gives rewards for whistleblowers, for community to be the eyes and ears of the government, so that when things are being dumped or suspicious activities are taking place, to report them promptly. And I think there's a reward system going in there that is very, very effective, because as pointed out by an earlier speaker, you can't line the river with 100,000 people all the time for 24/7, and you'll not be able to be able to watch all the time, even with drones or whatever, because these are being dumped down toilets. So that's an important part. And the second part, which is something I had actually written on, and Dr. Gudial actually had talked about it, but he talked about the common law. I talked about amendments to two laws. That is an amendment that should be rushed through the Water Services Industry Act 2006, as well as the LUNAS enactment, giving a statutory right to a person to sue the polluter, for losses suffered. And in fact, in my article, I said it should be not less. They should be entitled to get compensation of not less than 1,000 ringgit a day. That is, if they don't have to prove anything, 1,000 ringgit a day, to even a higher sum based on the actual losses, including economic loss. Now, this would enable the public to act as an enforcement authority through the judicial system, that if you get caught polluting, they will go for you and they will get judgments in the millions, and they will close your business down, and they will make sure you'll never be able to do this again. Now, these amendments I hope would have been passed with the LUNAS enactment. I'd written about them, but it's not been done. It's not too late. So you don't have to go through locus standi and all that anymore. The statutory right is given directly in the two enactments in relation to intentional offences of polluting water sources.
Yeah, which was tabled in 2000 and came into enactment in 2006. Wasia is long overdue for amendment check the act itself. I think from where it was propagated to where we are now, in what we are facing, the Wasia has to be relooked into. I think before we left, if all the former commissioners remember, I had put in a request to SPAN to look at retabling the Wasia with a lot of amendments in it, which we need to be seen through. What Derek says is true. We need to give more bite to the act, so that the federal agencies, federal government can take over some of the roles that is needed to play. But in coming to Selangor, especially, again, I want to insist that this whole thing of water security as far as this catchment area is concerned with the 4 big water treatment plants. Even if the Selangor government doesn't have enough funding in order to go in to do a thorough study, I think it can be taken out by the federal government themselves in order to do the study and come back and then advise the state government or share the study with the state government and then go forth looking at how we can bring upon a more secure area as far as this whole river basin is concerned.
Thank you very much, YB. And I think that's an important proposition, you know.
Halim, can I just come in? Halim, yeah, can I just quickly, just to say that, under YB, Dr. Xavier as minister, there is a revamp being undertaken, was initiated of the Environmental Quality Act. And it's very important because all the while the EQA is more or less like, you wait for pollution to happen and then you take some strong action to enforce it. But this is a very proactive, I think it's state of the art. I think although it's not been finalized, not been approved as yet by the new ministry, but I think I will just to say 2 or 3 things that have been included in this revamped EQA. One is, of course, the locus standi point that it gives the right to everybody who is affected, communities, NGOs, and so on, to deal with to enforce any dereliction of duty and so on. But it also has now, all the while, it has been very linear in terms of waste. But here, it becomes mandatory to recycle waste so that there can be no disposal of any waste in the final analysis in the long term. So everyone who is involved with any waste of any kind has an obligation to recycle that waste into useful products or useful this and so on and so forth. So the residue is reduced immensely. And then, of course, the question of tracking. One important provision that is being included is a self-reporting system, just like our income tax. Our income tax, you have to self-report, and therefore enforcement is made easier because people are a bit worried if there's a random check and there is a check that's subject to huge penalties. So that kind of a concept is being introduced because, as someone said, you can't have enforcement, you need a lot of money and so on and so forth. But in this kind of a model, then enforcement is facilitated and companies and so on and so forth are forced to have put in place a tracking system and a reporting system of what they do with their waste and so on. Thanks, Salim.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rudra.
Can I say something on this?
Maybe at this stage, I'd like to engage YB Charles on something that's related to the state, actually. May I ask this question first, Charles?
Yes, please.
The state government of Selangor recently amended laws to increase the penalty to ringgit 1 million. In your opinion, would this strategy actually help, or can it really help? Or what's your thoughts on this one?
Thanks, Halim, for that question. And whoever posed the question. I think recently the government of Selangor had suggested a couple of proposals. One of them is to increase the penalty for pollution up to 1 million ringgit, the use of drones, and the use of more enforcement personnel to look after the rivers. I think, in a general sense, it is welcome. It is necessary, but not sufficient. It is necessary, but not sufficient. I think what we need are institutional changes, which involves legal changes as well. And also, in my view, a mission type approach from government in order to deal and manage our environmental problems, starting with the rivers. I would have thought that the government of Malaysia, as part of its reform of the economy, would have brought some changes, would have introduced or would have given priority to environmental degradation or to repair the environmental degradation as part of the budget for this year.
Yes.
This is something, is a missed opportunity, I think. And one of the priorities could have been to protect and promote the rivers. And not only the rivers, but also to look at alternative sources of water. And this is important because if you look at other countries, who are facing the COVID pandemic, they are now looking at reimagining or resetting the economy. And one of the priority areas is climate. Climate change is one of the priority areas of most governments, but not so much in Malaysia. Although there are some plans, but there are bits and pieces all over the place, but not part of a plan as a mission approach or a purposeful approach towards solving a problem. So I would have thought that the government of Malaysia would have said, okay, we are going now to rehabilitate our rivers, and I can assure you that rehabilitation of rivers would have created lots of jobs, lots of business, lots of entrepreneurs, and you would have saved the river for the next generation or 3 generations from now. And as part of that, to look at the different sources of water issues that Dr. Xavier had raised. I think this is something that we could have done, but we have missed that opportunity. And I think at the same time, while we're looking at it, we are not thinking out of the box. We are looking at existing laws and seeing how the laws can apply. A very simple idea: create a buffer and create the context of a river and declare that as a security area. Is that asking for too much? No, it can be done. But in my view, there is no political will. There is no engagement. There is no thinking around those issues, and issues that can be solved with $5. You want to spend 1 million and not solving the problem. And in the process, billions of dollars are being wasted. I'm sure in the last 2 months, the amount of disruptions that we have had, if you put together all the amount of losses, it will run to 2-3 billions. So therefore, we are being petty-wise and pound-foolish. And while we look at trying to amend the laws and so on, the government has the power. The government is powerful. It can do so much, but it is not doing what it can do to protect the environment. And in the context of protecting the environment, you protect the climate. This is something that we should be doing. All of us should be doing, not just the government, but including us in society. Everybody has a responsibility. So I think, Alim, to answer your question, it is necessary. The efforts are necessary. But right now, it is just not enough. We need to move forward. The institutional changes must happen. The funding must happen. The priority for environment must happen. And this is not what's happening now. And whatever we have is just, pieces here, pieces there, but that doesn't make a whole. And therefore, I think we need to have this sense of purposefulness. We need to have a sense of a vision. And it is this thing that must come together in order to make the changes that we need. Otherwise, 5 years from now, we'll be sitting here and talking about the same thing. And this will be a disaster and a missed opportunity.
Thank you very much, YB Charles.
Just to follow up on what YB Charles had said, is actually there are 12 amendments in the, it's not just one only about increasing penalties. I think it's very good. It's a good start because, in fact, they're the first to amend the laws. I think Federal is here to catch up on WASIA in view of what is happening. There are 12, and some of the amendments are quite substantial because the definition of what is a pollutant is very wide now. It includes even if you damage aquatic life or, in fact, plants in the river, or even if you put something in the river that has no benefit to the river, that would be caught under. So it cuts the net very wide. So that's a good thing. And then the other provisions dealing with seizure, investigation, forfeiture, these are the nuts and bolts. I would have liked to see the statutory right to sue for every water consumer who suffers loss against the water polluter. And that means every person is entitled to claim minimum of 1,000 ringgit per day for water disruption against the wrongdoer. I would have loved to have seen that, and I hope the state government can consider that in the next round, and that will open everybody to be able to keep their eyes and ears open, because if they suffer loss, they are going to get these people who did it. So I think that will be important. But I do agree that this is just a law. There is some structural reform that is necessary to put the priorities that water security is national security, and it affects everybody, and the same enthusiasm for COVID-19 and that kind of power. Government has shown tremendous power in COVID-19. They can even possibly declare emergencies and stop elections. So they have the power, and they just need the motivation to do it. And I hope both state and federal government proceed with this and will protect the water supplies.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you. Now, we're heading towards 12:30, but I thought this gentleman actually posted something that will take us away a little bit from all these laws and amendments and fines. And I also believe in imprisonment if it has to. But this question by this gentleman called Adam Syed is also nice. He says, thus far, the implicit assumption of water woes is that they are attributable to pollution at the rivers, which in turn are our source of raw water. This is good. However, I do not see a concerted effort to diversify the source, especially groundwater. Shouldn't alternative raw water sources form part of the risk management or continuous water supply? I think this is a great idea. Can someone then expand on this? So let's go beyond and see what else we have in Mother Nature that can assist us with this problem. Faisal,
Well,
perhaps?
I've been saying this for the time that I came into the thing that we have to look at alternative water resources.
Yes.
Which is there. I have been told that a figure that has been thrown around there in the whole country, and every time I ask the department to dig the well, it gushes out with so much of water. Mm-hmm. And so I think we have to put an effort in order to do the complete study and survey, because only with data then we will be able to plan as how much water is available and how much we need to take out and how we can manage this resource that we have in the country. And this is something that has to be ongoing. I hope at RMK 12 this is going to be an issue that is going to be taken up seriously in order to help not only Selangor but a lot of other states as well, in order to make sure that this issue of water security is paid attention to. I think that is the direction that we have to go in. And we have to think out of the box sometimes in order to bring about new ways about how to do these things. Mm-hmm. Rainwater harvesting is not new. In the state of Gujarat in India, which has got a dry climate that is so bad, if they don't do rainwater harvesting during the rainy season, that state is in real deep trouble in terms of water resource. And they've been doing it for ages. I mean, if you go there, you can see how it is done from apartments, from buildings, from government buildings, and everything else. I mean, we have areas which we can learn from, and with the latest technologies that are in place, I think it is applicable at the present situation. So we can use these studies that are already been there on the table, but we'll have to spend in order to make our own national survey as to how much of underground water we have, and then how much of it we can use. And that is important for the future.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
I just want to follow up on that. There's something very practical which local government can do, which is being done now. For instance, in Petaling Jaya, if you build a new bungalow, you're required by our laws to put up a rainwater harvester. Now, if the state government is willing, these principles can be extended in planning and development control for new townships. We can, for instance, insist that water reservoir for housing developers, for instance, or property developers must cater for 5 days of no water supply. So we have that source there. And in addition to alternative sources, certainly we can be more strict with imposing rainwater harvesters, because rainwater harvesters are very, very effective to be able to provide that water additional supply apart from groundwater, because we have tremendous amount of rainwater. Also in policy management decisions, when we construct, for instance, highways and all that kind of stuff, we can now ask for tunneling and underground water storage systems to be done. Now we just need policies on master planning and development control, and then this can be implemented at local government level.